Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well. It's been a while since I posted, but I have some things that I've been thinking about lately that I just want to talk about. Gemma turned 13 months actual last week, so she's getting bigger, and I'm finding sometimes a little bit more time to be able to actually sit down and kind of process through my thoughts. Still struggling with postpartum depression and the PTSD at times. I had to take my oldest daughter, who is one of my only two completely healthy children that never had any hospital stays or anything. She's going to be 12 next week. I took her to the hospital last week for a specialist appointment at a children's hospital. Her pediatrician recommended she go see this specialist because she hasn't been feeling well for over a month now. I shouldn't say not feeling well. She didn't feel well a little over a month ago. And since then, she hasn't been hungry. And her blood test with the pediatrician came back normal. So she referred us to this doctor at the children's hospital. And so Friday, a few days ago, I went there for an appointment. And it was at the children's hospital where my fourth baby, my second NICU baby, had to stay for a while. And I just have some really bad memories from that hospital. And developed PTSD after after that experience with her being there. So I have to say that the time that I spent there last week with my daughter, even though it was for a different reason and my daughter wasn't like deathly ill, she just needed to see this specialist who he specializes in like hard to diagnose conditions and diseases, just to have another set of eyes look at her. So it wasn't like I went there with a really sick baby and I wasn't visiting a baby in the hospital or staying with my baby in the hospital, but just walking back into that hospital after what I went through with my fourth oldest was very traumatizing, and I almost had a panic attack. I was standing in line at the desk to check in, and I was breathing so fast and I felt hot, and I was just starting to get shaky and just freaking myself out. And it's okay, PTSD is very real, and it just jumps up and bites you at the most inconvenient times and sometimes out of nowhere. You could be fine going through your day, and postpartum depression or PTSD is this crouching tiger that's just waiting to jump at you, and you don't see it coming. So I really didn't see myself I wasn't excited to go to the hospital, but I didn't see myself having anxiety when I got there, but I did. Luckily I was able to calm myself down, tell myself okay, you're not here for a sick baby. You're all the things my counselor taught me how to do. So part of my message today is about that, I see a lot of people, especially in the NICU groups I'm in on Facebook, that'll post about how they're feeling and, saying, I'm crying all the time. I'm worried. My baby's still in the hospital. This is happening, that's happening, and I don't know what to do, or I can't stop thinking about it, or my baby came home and I can't sleep at night. I'm just having a hard time with the memories of what happened in the hospital. And if you watch my other videos, I've had 3 babies in the NICU, all for different reasons. They were not all preemies. I only had 1 preemie. My other 2 were for, my daughter. If you've watched the video about From Seizures to Success, that's Avila's story. She had a stroke and brain bleed during birth and ended up very, very sick in the hospital that I was at last week. And then my second oldest has congenital neuro issues that we knew about before birth, but he was in the NICU for a little while too, much shorter than we expected. He was only there for 6 days. But, I had experiences with him and my other daughter before I had my preemie, and then she was there for 103 days. Very, very long time. But, there's so many people who have experiences with NICU stays, and they do have PTSD or postpartum depression, and maybe they don't recognize it, or maybe they feel like I did before I sought help for mine. I was thinking get a hold of yourself. You're fine. What are you so flipped out about? Why are you crying? What are you get it together? Quit feeling sorry for yourself. And I'm not the kind of person that is the victim. I don't wear that hat well as the victim. I'm okay, bad things happen and you have to just pull it together and keep moving forward. I know I'm a pretty strong person and I have a very, very strong family and a lot of support from them. And I have very strong in my faith. I'm very religious. I'm Catholic. I pray. Absolutely believe that God allows us to suffer for different reasons and that He's always with us and that it's not a punishment and that, some people are given harder hands to deal with, than other people. But I don't just go, oh, woe's me, I'm the victim. And I felt like with postpartum depression, PTSD, um, I felt like I was kind of victimized. And in order for me to admit that I needed to go get help, I had to admit that I was having a hard time and that I couldn't just handle it myself and that I was, in fact, a victim in some way. And it's okay to admit that you're a victim. Like, that's not like a bad thing. Like, in order for you to address PTSD and postpartum depression, especially due, to having a baby that was in the NICU, yeah, you have been a victim. And it doesn't mean that you're playing the victim card to admit that, like, okay, you and your baby and your whole family are victims of some particular hardship. And what are you going to do about it? And before you address that and admit that to yourself, and seek help, then you're not going to be able to get past it. It's going to be really hard for you and it's just going to keep wearing on you. It's still hard for me 13 months after having my baby. Like I said, I had PTSD from my prior pregnancy before I even had this baby in the NICU for 103 days. But this definitely brought a whole new wave of PTSD on and like gave me it worsened it in a lot of ways. So that's something I definitely want to say, like, find a counselor that specializes in postpartum issues, especially if you can find one that specializes in treating people who are dealing with either a handicapped child or a child, a preemie, had a NICU experience, had some sort of PTSD that was like mother-child related. Because the one I saw did have that experience and she was very helpful. I haven't seen her in a while, but I feel like even though when I have my bouts of PTSD, postpartum depression kind of like where it sneaks up on me and causes problems, I have the tools that I need to be able to kind of deal with it on my own. Some days are worse than others, but so far, I've been able to kind of manage it a little bit better. It's not something that just poof, it's miracle, it goes away. Like, they don't see you and treat it and then you're like a new person and you don't have it anymore. You just kind of learn how to deal with it when you're struggling. So that's part of what I wanted to say today. But the other thing is I have to admit something. So this is really embarrassing for me to admit, but it might be helpful to some of you and maybe even for your family members to have them watch this video if you feel like this is important for them to know and to hear it from somebody else besides you. So I'm embarrassed to say that despite the fact that I had 2 babies in the NICU, one NICU had open rooms, like a big room with a lot of babies in it, and then there were kind of like semi-private rooms. So I did see some preemies there, and there was even I remember a micro preemie that I believe was like a 23-weeker. I think I overheard the doctor saying that, who was admitted there, and I was in the NICU nursing my son with the door open when they rushed this baby into like the big room that was outside our little room. And so I could overhear everything that was going on and see everything that was going on. And it was really, really scary. But even despite that, and despite the fact that my other baby that was in the NICU was there for a while, and those were private rooms, so I didn't see like as much, and I didn't really meet parents there because we were only there 9 days, so I didn't like make friends with preemie moms or anything like that, and she wasn't a preemie. So even though I had those experiences with those 2 NICUs, I would think that those experiences would have helped me to have a better understanding about how it works when you have like a really early preemie. So this is where I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I've been pregnant 7 times. I've had 2 losses and I have 7 living children or 5 living children. And I have never been a woman who enjoys pregnancy. Yes, I enjoy like the end result. I enjoy nursing a baby. I enjoy having the baby, like holding the baby and having the little baby at home. But the pregnancy part I don't like it. I have always been very nauseous in the beginning, sometimes as late as like 15 or 16 weeks. I know that's nothing compared to some people that are sick like a lot longer than that. Um, and just the like, gaining weight. And I've always been very like self-conscious about my body. And even though I know I'm pregnant, I'm gaining weight because I'm pregnant. Like I'm obsessive. Like I hate getting weighed and being told, oh, you gain more weight. And you're like, it's good that you're gaining weight like when you're pregnant. But like I would always be like, oh, that's too much. Oh, that's too much. Like freaking out about it. I hate, the heartburn and the not being able to sleep. I get big pregnancy insomnia and all the tests and the visits and the stress of it. And then, not being able to like have a glass of wine, like to relax or whatever, or like, um, just all those things, normal pregnancy things. Like, I shouldn't complain because my pregnancies, even though I've had problems with my pregnancies, like I haven't had, like some people have a lot more difficult of a time carrying a child than I do. But just those sacrifices to have the baby. Of course, they're uncomfortable. And, so I'm like, oh, I don't really enjoy being pregnant. I know some women are like, oh, I just love being pregnant. But I remember in the past, even after having, a NICU baby, like being pregnant and knowing that a baby like born at 23 or 24 weeks had a chance of survival. I think in my mind, I thought, like a lot of people do, and I'm finding this out now, that a lot of people think a baby that's born at 23 or 24 or 25 weeks is just a really small baby and like they just have to eat and grow and like they'll go home. Like I had no understanding of the lifelong effects of prematurity that some of these babies, they especially born super, super early, and the chance of survival or the chance of survival without having any lifelong problems is low. And they have to fight so hard. And then even the ones that do survive, like Gemma got sick, she got neck. Google it, NEC, if you don't know what it is, necrotizing enterocolitis. Very scary, life-threatening. Um, these babies are like on oxygen. They're, they have ROP. They have like all these different things they can have. They can have neck. They can have feeding intolerances. They can have, all these issues with body parts that didn't kind of quite develop all the way or properly because they were so premature, because being fed by the placenta is completely different than being fed by breast milk when they're, born at 23, 24, 25 weeks. And so I think there was a really selfish part of me that used to think, like when I got to 23 or 24 weeks, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so over this pregnancy. If this baby were just born right now, I would be fine because then I wouldn't have to be pregnant anymore. Like I could just have this baby now and like it could just grow outside of me and then I wouldn't have to be pregnant anymore. This is going to sound like a slap in the face and like it's total wrong to think that way. But this is what I used to think until I did have a micropreemie. And now I realize, wow, I was a total jerk for thinking that. But then it made me realize if I had two babies in the NICU and I still thought that like a 23, 24, 25 week baby was just like a really small, regular full-term baby, if I was able to think that after my experiences with my other babies being in the NICU, then there's probably a lot of other people, family members and friends who don't quite understand just how scary and dangerous it is to deliver a baby that early. So, like I said, this post today is an admission that, hey, I thought this way. And I can't believe now, after having a 26-weeker and having her be in the hospital for 103 days and watching not just her fight for her life, but making friends with other preemie moms and some of these babies that were born even earlier than her, 24-weekers, 25-weekers, and how long they were there and how hard it was for everyone, not just the baby, the whole family. And then the stories of people I've met through the NICU group that, oh, they had a twin and one didn't make it, or maybe neither made it. It's really, really scary and really hard. And so I just really want to help people understand that gestation, second trimester, we're talking about not even the third trimester, that delivering a baby then is not just like, oh, well, the baby's going to grow and do fine. And there's a lot of people who are like, stay positive, baby's going to be fine. We all know in reality that there are, statistics, and that sometimes they work in your favor and sometimes they don't. And we have to be hopeful and positive and support our babies. And it's rough for everybody. And it's wonderful when they make it home, but they make it home and they're still not like normal babies. I mean, my kid's 13 months old and still not like a normal baby. She's got her own medications and she still has a reflux. And, so I was so, so wrong to think that, if she was born at 26 weeks, that, I remember when they were going to deliver me, we were getting ready to deliver, and I was afraid of a lot of different things that, that she wouldn't make it or that I wouldn't make it because it was an emergency C-section under general anesthesia. So I was like, I don't know if I'll wake up from this or whatever. It was really scary, but I think I was less worried about her survival because I was kind of just like ignorant, like I didn't really realize what we were up against at delivering her that early. But it became apparent that the only way that either of us were going to survive was to deliver her and take our chances. And I didn't know even then, delivering her, how hard of a road that NICU could be with a baby that early. So the point of my story here is make sure your family and friends understand that delivering a baby at that gestation is not like delivering a small full-term baby. Have them watch this video if they need to hear it from somebody else. But, and I apologize to all of you who I probably offend by my past thinking before I had my micro preemie and my thinking that like, oh yeah, I could just have a baby at this gestation and the baby would be fine and just grow and like go home and be like a normal baby. It's just a very small, like regular baby. Totally wrong. So that's my message for today. If you want to know about my stories with my other kids, there's my miracle boy is my son with the neuro issues. And like I said, Seizures to Success is my full-term baby that had the stroke and brain bleed. And then my placenta previa story video is about my last pregnancy with my baby who was born at 26 weeks. And that was due to placenta previa, but it was complicated beyond just the previa. That's not the only reason I delivered her at 26 weeks. So if you are interested in any of those stories, please watch my other videos. And I hope you guys are all having a great day, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.